the Bally Sports Southwest TV color analyst for these Mavericks. His name is Derek Harper. Harp, how's it going today?
What's up, Harp?
Hey, how you guys, Chris? What's going on? How are you guys?
We're doing quite well, and I want to start here because both Dereck Lively and Derrick Jones Jr. had an opportunity after one of those games late in that last series where they were doing their press availability together, and someone asked them, what's the right way to spell Derek? And so I'd like to ask you, Derek Harper, what is indeed the correct way to spell Derek?
I mean, come on, man. That's not a good question.
One ara or two aras?
Hey,
a CK or a K?
Hey, for 62 years, I've spelled it D-E-R-E-K. And with that being said, that's the right way to spell it.
I like that. But no, I think that what that showed for me is it showed kind of the camaraderie that this team has, specifically for Dereck Lively. I mean, this is a guy going through some things in his life, and he still has a lot of joy, and he attributes it to his team. Like, what have you seen from this team all the way through the season, particularly in the postseason, that's helped translate into wins?
Man, I mean, I think people take for granted when it comes to continuity, when you start talking about a team like the Mavericks. I mean, their continuity, nobody can break in. You know, you can be around this team and not be a part of this team, meaning that they're that tight. They have a very close-knit group. I think a lot of it comes from Jason Kidd and his staff. You know, I think people forget Jay Kidd. You know, he takes a lot of jumps. I'm not one of these social media people, but I read a lot of crazy stuff when it comes to Jason Kidd as a coach. And I just think his approach is a very subdued, hunting approach, if you would, as a coach. And he gets the best out of his team. And one of the things that when you start talking about Lively, Gafford, just this whole team in general, they're tied together, and that's what's giving them a chance.
Yeah, he likes to use.
That's what gave them a chance to get through the conference final, and will give them a chance to win it all.
Yeah, two big words they always talk about. And they're repeating Jason Kidd is together and trust. He says that, and that's kind of like their mantra. And that's why they believe in each other. They believe in the coaching staff too, but they believe in each other. And like you said, Harp, they are thick as thieves. Real quick here, they knock off Minnesota in the first game. This is just the first game. And we already know there's going to be adjustments made. How surprised were you that Kyrie and Luka were able to drive to the basket at will?
Extremely. And I think if I was weighing both sides, I thought that an experienced front line with the T-Wolves, you know, would have an advantage. But that wasn't the case. Let's face it, man, you're not just talking about average guys, Chris, getting to the rim and finishing at the rim. Luka getting to his spots late in the game. Those are not ordinary guys. These guys can get it done with the best of them. They're two of the best fourth-quarter scorers in the league. And what happens? Well, it didn't go that way. It didn't go Kyrie and Luka. But in the first half, it was Kyrie. Second half, it was all Luka. Fourth quarter, he had 15, right?
Yep.
Of the 26 points that the Mavericks had in the fourth quarter. And everybody's afraid to talk about it because nobody wants to jump the gun. I think the Mavericks are in the finals. I really do. Woo. And the reason I do is because after the All-Star break, Chris, this team has been outstanding, one. And two, if you look at their personnel up and down the board, you know, the rotation has been cut short somewhat. But the guys that are playing, they're producing. And that's what you need this time of year. You need guys to produce. I mean, Gafford and Lively were 9 for 13 last night, had 20 rebounds combined. You're not going to beat this team when they're playing the way they're playing right now. Dallas is they're not afraid of anybody. And, you know, let's give Kyle a lot of credit, man. Kyrie had to, you know, I know both he and Luka had to sacrifice, right? Once all of the dust settled.
Yeah.
But I think Kyrie deserves a lot of credit, not to take anything away from anybody, because he sacrificed the most. Kyrie is a 1A kind of player. I mean, I know he won a championship with LeBron as Batman, as Robin, beg your pardon. But the dude is special. You know, he's a basketball player with immaculate skills is what I'll say about Kyrie, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for coming through like he's come through for this team.
Absolutely. And I mean, that showed up in the way that nobody could stay in front of him in game one. We're talking to Derek Harper, Mavs great and TV color analyst for these Mavs right here on 105.3 The Fan. And you talked about the personnel. I want to talk about one person in particular, Dereck Lively II. As a big man, he continues to show up in a big way. His plus minus has been fantastic amongst any player in these playoffs. And I want to use your analytic mind, your basketball hooper mind. Is there a way that you can kind of help us understand the value that Dereck Lively brings, particularly with his ability to play in the short role as a young big in the way that he has?
Well, there's a such thing called specialists as players, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dennis Rodman, he was a specialist. He just rebounded and defended. He just so happens to do it very well. And I think Lively is out of the same cloth, if you would, when you think about him as a player. He's not out there to score, although he bumps into 10 points a game, 8, 9 points a game every single night. But as a specialist, your job is to play a role. And I think pound for pound, he plays his role as anybody else. He rebounds, he polices the paint. He's very intelligent as a young basketball player, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And to your point, to start this conversation, he's going through a lot. And I think when you're going through stuff like he's going through, you can't wait to get to the game. He can't wait to go play basketball because it takes his mind and his system away from what's going on in the real world.
Yeah. He even said he was glad that they started the series on the road because he was with his basketball family in a hotel and he could focus on the game as opposed to, thinking about his mom who passed away.
I mean, it's important, man. I mean, I don't know if you have your mother, but you lose your mother here, man, and it's a difficult time for him. And I just admire Lively before that actually happened because he's mature beyond his years. And I think drafting that kid, number one, Nico and all those guys in the front office deserve hella credit. They really do for pulling the trigger on a guy that really slipped as far as I'm concerned. Outside of Wemby, I don't think there's any rookie in the league that's played as well as Lively has played for what's asked of him.
Exactly, and for him to be available at the number 12 spot, and by the way, shout out to Oklahoma City because accidentally they helped us get better, where they helped with that little trade right there. They also helped with the Daniel Gafford trade, providing us with a first-round pick. With that being said, let me pick your mind on some other things about this matchup again. And again, major props to Nico, J. Kidd, for those who were doubting them. Nico especially making these deals that nobody, I mean, they weren't the biggest names, or when they got the big name, which was Kyrie, that's not going to work. And little did people know that, Kyrie's been knowing Nico since he was in high school. And and J. Kidd's his favorite player of all time, and he respects him more than any other coach he's ever had. So these are some of the intangibles that people don't know about.
That's right, Chris. It's called connection. It's called speaking the same language, being on the same page, however you want to word it. They're connected. There's a connection that will win you games. I'll just put it to you that way. And surely, I think we all have to admit that last year, before we got to this year, there were some challenges, and there will be challenges when you try to mesh greatness to greatness. And it was, but I said when the season ended last year, if you remember, Chris, they didn't make the playoffs last year. They closed it down, basically. Everybody went crazy, but it takes time, man, to be successful when you try to bring two caliber players like Luka and Kyrie together. If you look now, are you tired of seeing them hug and embrace each other yet?
No.
Because you've seen that more.
Yeah.
You've seen that more at the end of the season and during the playoffs as you've ever seen it. Those guys actually like each other now.
Yes, they do.
And beyond liking, they respect each other as players.
That's the key.
And both of they're bona fide players that can, whether it's the first half or the second half, that can win you basketball games. That's why I'm picking the Mavericks in this series. I don't know about Anthony Edwards. He's great. but he's immature in a lot of ways too for
22.
this time of the year because he asked for Kyrie. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it, you've seen it, where he says he has Kai, and he's a great two-way player. But you saw him gasping for air last night, Chris.
Oh yeah, and he also couldn't go downhill. He's just jacking up threes.
I don't know any player in this league that can guard Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, and have the energy to score as well. And that's what he takes away from people. If you're going to stop Kyrie, you're going to be tired as heck.
Yep.
You're not going to be able to go down and get your 25, 27. And that's what happened to Minnesota last night. I know they're going to make adjustments. That's what the playoffs is all about, right? You're going to make some adjustments if you're Minnesota. But you're still going to have that two-headed monster in Luka and Kai that you're going to have to deal with. I like the Mavericks. That's all I can say. I'm not smart enough to tell you in how many games and all that stuff. I never believed in that kind of stuff because nobody knows how many games it's going to be. If you look at injury situations, somebody getting in foul trouble, those are the little nuances of the game that you don't, when the game starts, you don't think about. But those things happen, and it changes the whole complex of the game.
We're talking to Derek Harper right here on 105 Through the Fan. And Harp, I don't think you're selling yourself short, but I definitely want to make sure that you're not doing that. You're a fantastic analyst. We appreciate you a whole bunch. And, I mean, it looked like a fantastic game plan in game one, but clearly you've got to imagine that there's more things on the table for Jason Kidd and these Mavs. Do you have anything in mind that you think would still be available for the Mavs, maybe attacking Karl-Anthony Towns or something? Like, is there something schematically that you're like, there's still some meat on the bone for these Mavs?
You know, I think the role players will be better for Dallas in game two. That's what I think. Not that they were bad. I mean, if you look at Gafford, Lively, they played well. They didn't play their best. I heard Anthony Edwards say exactly that about his team. But I think you can get more out of Derek Jones Jr. I just think that Dallas, they have a leash of guys. We talked about their depth. The rotation has been cut short a little bit. But Hardy, if he gets more opportunity, I think he's going to show more. And I'm waiting on Josh Green to provide something for this team during the playoffs. He's been a little bit quiet, but very capable with all of the energy that he brings to the table night in and night out.
Minnesota's got a great defensive team. They were, the number one team defensively for the whole season. The Mavericks, the number one defensive team since March, since trade, basically. Another note for those who aren't aware, the Dallas Mavericks have not lost 2 games in a row. Outside of that 2-game end of the season when they didn't even play the rotation, they have not lost 2 games in a row since early March. I think these guys are winners, like you're saying. I just wonder about Minnesota and the height and the length. In my mind, they got some great defensive players, with Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year. You got Jaden McDaniels, who's the second-team all-defense. But I keep looking at Cat, and I keep thinking if he has a good game, we might have some problems because he stretches the floor. But he's so inconsistent. What are your thoughts about Karl-Anthony Towns?
I like him as a player, Chris. He's a bona fide scorer. He can rebound about 8, 9 rebounds a game, basically throughout his career. He's been 20 and 10. However, he has a tendency, Chris, if you were to fall in love with the perimeter.
Yeah. And
I think that's his downfall. I would think that they're going to put him on the block and let him operate down there. And P.J. Washington, man, I didn't see – I knew he was a decent player, Chris, but I didn't see what I've seen from him.
Oh, yeah, not in Charlotte.
He's very versatile as a player, but where his strength lies is on the defensive end of the floor. He's a great defender that really forces guys to do things that they're not comfortable doing. I saw Karl-Anthony Towns last night working off the bounce, trying to get to the rim, couldn't get around Washington Jr. So I'm not sure how effective he's going to be. What I think Minnesota is going to do is they're going to play Rudy less because if you watch the defense last night, Rudy was sitting back in the pick and roll situation. He didn't step up and challenge what was going on from the point guard position. And when I tell you Luka and Kyrie will have a field day if they try to defend those guys the same way. But I think you're going to see Miles Reed a little bit more because he's more versatile. He's better on the perimeter. He can stretch the floor. He can do a lot of different things that Rudy can't do. So I think, that little cat and mouse game is going to be very interesting in the game on Friday night.
That's the analysis that we're so fortunate to get anytime we tune into Bally. With him hanging out with Mark Followill, it is the Mavs legend, the man whose numbers retired at the AAC, and, of course, the guy who you catch all the time on Bally Sports Southwest. His name is Derek Harper. The proper name is a way to spell Derek, mind you. We appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time, sir.
Chris should have told you all that.
I wanted to make sure we got it on wax.
Derek is Derek.
And we won't forget it.
And Derek is standing on business with that.
That's right. We appreciate you.
Man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Have a wonderful
Thanks,
evening.
Harp.